Today on VOA Weekly. In the apple orchards of Pennsylvania, America's immigration policies are debated. Immigrants from the Soviet Union find a place in America to practice their religion on what used to be Russian soil. We'll take you to Wyoming, where a craftsman shows us how he keeps you riding high in the saddle.
The Trump administration is pushing to strengthen the country's immigration laws and borders. In Adams County, Pennsylvania, agriculture accounts for more than $200 million in sales, an area where Hispanic immigrants, many here illegally, are the primary source of labor. VOA's Bill Rogers goes to the town of York Springs to talk to one farmer and one Hispanic immigrant about how they depend on each other.
Before it was different. It was more relaxed. People would go out and walk around. Today it's the opposite. People hide themselves. They're afraid there'll be raids, that immigration agents will come for them.
I'm a farmer. I farm pork and beef with my son. I'm an 8th generation here in the U.S. Of German descent. The Hispanics coming into our society have filled a real need. I do some traveling, some consulting work, and have to travel. And, go to any major hotel, Marriott, Hyatt, whatever, and try to get your room cleaned by a non-Hispanic worker. It's probably not going to happen.
Most of the people have left the town. They've returned to their countries before anything else happens. I'm sad to see this, and also, aside from feeling sad, I don't know what I can do to help or change this situation. But one can't really do anything. It's all in the hands of the government and, the American people, to support the Hispanic people, and to show that we are helping this country become greater.
The
Hispanics have a very strong work ethic. I can't get over that. At least the ones that are here, that have settled here. You just don't see very many of them lounging around with no work. And there's plenty of jobs, average middle income jobs to be had here in the area.
Most of the people I know are hardworking here in this region. There's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of work. They would have stayed. They wanted to stay. But seeing the situation as it is, they felt it was better to leave before being caught and deported, so they could take their belongings with them. Because as you know, when they arrest and deport you, you're not even allowed to bring your belongings with you.
Now, certainly if they have some criminal record, I think those people need to be vented and screened. If they are law-abiding and are willing to become citizens and get the documentation even after they're here, I think they should be incorporated into our society.
There are people who work and do deserve to be here, but I also know there are people who, truthfully, don't deserve to be here because they do bad things.
I think eventually we're going to, all be brought together in a melting pot. The U.S. has always been a melting pot of societies and cultures, and I'm optimistic that that's going to continue.
I'm not afraid of being here, and I'm fine, and will keep on trying to contribute to this country. But in case something happens, well, I'm not from this country, but I have a lot of American friends who like me and want me to stay. If something would happen, and they would come to my country to visit me, I would give them a warm welcome. I would accept them, and so would my government. There's a big difference between the Mexican government and the American government on this issue at this time.
Arturo was picked up by immigration agents during a sweep of York Springs the day after this interview was conducted. He was held at a detention facility, but now is on bail appealing his case.
While the biggest U.S. state in land size, Alaska is one of the least populous, with fewer than 750,000 residents. Among them is a group of people whose story is a classic American tale of religion and refuge in a remote land.
It was all desert. We started all of it. And then the Americans started coming over. They like it here. It's quiet, very few people, not many cars.
Mother Irina belongs to the ones they call the Old Believers, whose forebears split from the Russian Orthodox Church in the 17th century. Then, about 50 years ago, some of the believers landed here in America, in southern Alaska on the Kenai Peninsula, establishing a village called Nikolaevsk. Their ancestors had fled communism first in Russia and then again in China.
With the arrival of communism, at first it was fine, but then they just started coming to the huts and taking everything. Our people used to have big families, the same as we do now, but you need to feed the kids. They just come and take everything.
There are a little more than 300 people in Nikolaevsk. The men with their beards and Russian shirts make their living with fishing or boat building.
We've built over 100 boats. And now the boats are barely worn out. They stay functional. Instead of ordering new ones, people just sell them on. But we still build some.
Women wear traditional Russian dresses they sew themselves. Their designs are part of the local landscape.
We are here for 40 years. Maybe some tourists that visit think we have weird clothes, but the local people, they know us.
The Old Believers speak Russian and pray in Old Church Slavonic. But the younger generation prefers English.
Our kids speak Russian well. We spoke good Russian in the family. But their kids do not speak Russian. They come and can't tell me what they need. It's hard.
Mother Irina's house is filled with church books, some copied by hand by her late husband, the priest. One corner is adorned with icons, embroidered towels, and a portrait of U.S. President John Kennedy. The Old Believers live in harmony with Alaska's Russian Orthodox Church representatives.
Why make an issue over things that have nothing to do with doctrine or morality? These were ritual differences that for the majority had very little significance, but for them it was very important.
Nowadays, Nikolaevsk even has a local tourist attraction, Cafe Samovar.
When they made a sewer here in 2002, I opened the cafe, and the tourists can have borscht, piroshki, pelmeni, and their traditional Russian tea.
And Nina Fefeloff goes to church every day in Nikolaevsk, her community, in Alaska, in America.
I can stand there with my husband. It's 100% happiness. I am praying with him. This is my happiness in life.
In rural America, population is continuously declining. The movement towards cities, fueled by closing of small family farms, jobs going overseas, automation, and attraction of big cities is slowly changing the face of rural America. Once vibrant small towns are slowly fading away, causing anxiety and uncertainty among people living in these communities. This is the story of Roger Brosha, who lives in Mount Carroll, Illinois.
It seems like a busy scene at Bald Guy's Coffee and Bistro. But the picture here and elsewhere in Mount Carroll is incomplete.
A lot of elderly people now are around, and you don't see many young kids. They're all gone. There's just not much here for them to do.
Roger Brosha has lived near this small Midwestern town since he was 9 years old. Back then, it seemed to offer the world.
There were clothing stores, there were shoe stores, there was coast-to-coast stores, there were hardware stores, there was barber shops, there was restaurants. It felt like he was walking downtown Chicago.
The shift away from small town and rural life has been a constant in U.S. history. From half of Americans living in small communities 100 years ago to just 20% today. In recent decades, as factories were automated or moved overseas, key markers of town's life have also left.
I feel real sad, yeah. Real sad that all the shops are gone and buildings are empty. It just feels like a like it's a ghost town now.
The promise of small town revival is not always realistic, but it has a deep appeal.
Story here, I used to come in here when I was a young boy. My parents used to bring me in here to get my hair cut. And when you walk in the door, there'd be 10, 13 people sitting in the chair, all talking about businesses that happened during the day and waiting in line to get a haircut.
But not everyone is ready to abandon this way of life.
I like the small towns. Yeah, I'll be here until I'm gone.
Deepak Dobhal, VOA News, Mount Carroll, Illinois.
Ahead on VOA Weekly, President Trump and the Iran nuclear deal, what's at stake, and one man's effort to preserve the cowboy culture of the American West.
I'm Jim Malone, and I work the political beat. I cover what drives the political issues in the United States, what voters think, what drives the candidates, how public opinion shifts on one issue or another. It keeps you in touch with the American people and where they want the country to go. It's a great way to get a window on what's happening in the United States. I'm Jim Malone, and my beat is U.S. politics.
I'm Roger Muntu. I've been a VOA for about 4 years. First of all, I wanted to become a broadcaster. That was the idea. But my parents, where I was growing up in the DRC, thought that that was not a good idea because it was not a well-paid job. When I came to the US, I was like, you know what? Now I'm living here on my own, so I can do whatever I want. The only way for me to get to broadcasting is to start by building my own studio. I loved music since I was a kid. Creating my own stuff is like building your own house. I did some acting in high school. So my acting came back and they started calling me to audition me, which I went and auditioned. They're like, oh my God, you're an actor. At VOA, I do radio, but I also do TV. We deal with social issues. We debate a subject every week. People in different countries in Africa can call and express their opinion. VOA really humbles me. It gives me a sense of understanding the world in that one building. You can't get that anywhere.
President's warning to Iran.
The Iran deal, which may be the single worst deal I've ever seen drawn by anybody, if that deal doesn't conform to what it's supposed to conform to, there's going to be big, big problems for them.
Could soon be up to Capitol Hill to enforce. But some members of the president's own party say it's better to work with what's already in place.
As flawed as the deal is, I believe we must now enforce the hell out of it.
And if that 2-year-old deal is thrown into question, Royce said the White House should lead the way.
It is critical that the president lay out the facts. He should explain that his decision, he should explain what it means. He should explain what it doesn't mean. And then I hope, as I've tried to do here today, the president will define a responsible path forward to confront the full range of threats.
But a departure from the Iran deal could land a serious blow to America's reputation. The committee's top Democrat warned.
We in the United States have to live up to our word. If we withdraw from the deal now, Iran would be free today from the constraints on their program and the intrusive inspections that the JCPOA puts into place.
And could have an impact on crises across the globe, a former Obama administration official told Congress.
Both with respect to China and with respect to any effort to negotiate with North Korea, going to them and saying, hey, work a deal with us on the nuclear issue, you can count on us to actually enforce it. That would be a laughable proposition if we've just walked away from the Iranian nuclear deal.
Just a week ago, Trump's own top Pentagon official told Congress the U.S. shouldn't scrap the deal.
Do you believe it's in our national security interest at the present time to remain in the JCPOA?
Yes, Senator, I do.
The president's decision complicated by disagreement as to whether Iran is keeping up its end of the bargain.
Is Iran in compliance with the treaty? Just yes or no down the line. Yes, sir?
Treaty, yes. 2231. Resolution, no.
No. Not in full compliance.
Yes.
The Trump administration has already certified Iranian compliance twice, but one national security analyst says the issue is a way of freeing the president from a deal he never liked.
It's not clear to me that Congress really wants to get involved in a tough effort to pressure Iran to renegotiate. And frankly, I suspect that many congressmen know that Iran wouldn't renegotiate.
Aside from renegotiating the deal, Congress could quickly reimpose previous sanctions, or it could do nothing at all. Catherine Gibson, VOA News, Capitol Hill.
What exactly is the Iran nuclear deal? In July 2015, the permanent 5 members of the UN Security Council, Britain, China, France, Russia, and the United States, plus Germany, agreed with Iran on a landmark deal. Iran would discontinue building a nuclear bomb if international sanctions placed on the country in 2006 are lifted. Benefits to Iran include receiving billions of dollars in unfrozen funds and opening up its markets to foreign investors previously barred from doing business with Iran. The Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, or JCPOA, was endorsed by a United Nations Security Council resolution, solidifying it as international law. It went into effect in January 2016. UN inspectors from the International Atomic Energy Agency, or IAEA, are in charge of monitoring Iran's compliance. Before the agreement was finalized, Congress gave itself review and oversight privileges for any nuclear deal reached with Iran. The Iran Nuclear Agreement Review Act of 2015 requires the U.S. President to certify to Congress every 90 days that Tehran is abiding by the provisions of the deal. Criteria the President considers in certifying are whether Iran is fully implementing all parts of the deal, whether Iran has committed a material breach of the agreement, whether Iran has taken significant action to advance a nuclear program, or whether the suspension of U.S. sanctions under the deal is appropriate and proportionate to the measures taken by Iran, and whether suspending the sanctions is vital to U.S. national security interests. If the President does not certify Iran's compliance, a 60-day period begins in which Congress can reimpose some or all of the old U.S. sanctions, but not UN sanctions.
Next on VOA Weekly, presidential approval ratings, what they tell us about our leaders and ourselves.
My name is Selin Suerünlü. I've been at VOA for more than 6 years. Motorcycling is not just a hobby for me, it's a passion because I feel freedom when I'm riding, free from all of the thoughts, all the negative thoughts. It's like therapy. I got into biking like 12 years ago. It was all of a sudden because we were thinking of launching some blogs. It was a crazy, wild idea at first. I kind of managed to build a large audience who are motorcycle enthusiasts in Turkey, and now there are thousands and thousands of fans. They like to see the two personas of me. I mean, the anchor on air and also the biker girl on the motorcycle. The freedom I feel when I'm riding really ties into the freedom to report on VOA because of the fact that there's no censorship. And you can report about anything. You're unbiased and it's like the freedom that you cannot find anywhere else.
My name's Carla Babb, and I work the Pentagon beat.
That access helps me to do better stories. Every day it's my responsibility to collect all of the defense news. It keeps our VOA viewers informed. I get to travel all across the globe. Anything that's defense related and how to protect and keep people safe, that's where I'll go. So it's never a dull moment at the Pentagon. My name is Carla Babb. This is my team.
Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States.
Do you approve or disapprove of the way Donald Trump is handling his job as president? There are at least 12 polling companies in the business of asking Americans that question. The Gallup poll has been measuring the job approval of American presidents since 1945. Gallup's editor-in-chief, Frank Newport, talked to us about how Trump stacks up against his predecessors and what the numbers say about American society.
It's one thing we've seen from President Trump recently, who loves polls, even though he likes to criticize them. He used to say, look at my good numbers in the polls. Now, more recently, he's been talking about how well he's doing just among his base. So he's quit talking, for the most part, about how he's doing among all Americans. The bottom line is he's doing worse in his first year than any other newly elected president has done in their first year. And that would be going back to Dwight Eisenhower. So for President Trump to still be with approval ratings at this point below 40% means that at this point, about 8 or 9 months into his presidency, he is getting a lower approval rating than any other president newly elected in the early fall of their first year in office. It didn't just start with Trump. We noticed in the latter years of George W. Bush, after the Iraq War and after he was reelected in 2004, things began to get more polarized. That is, he did well among Republicans but very poorly among Democrats. And then Barack Obama was very polarized all through his term, where he did well among Democrats, but Republicans were very low in their approval. And now Trump has inherited the same situation.
English has some strange phrases and sayings as words get strung together to create a new meaning. We'll try to explain by serving up a word salad.
During election season in the United States, it's practically impossible to avoid pundits, ubiquitous commentators paid to appear on TV offering insights and opinions on the campaigns. But what exactly is a pundit, and how do you become one? The term pundit actually comes from the ancient Sanskrit word pandit, meaning knowledge owner. Pundits in Hindu culture are wise and respected, and their advice is highly prized. Here in the U.S., however, pundits are held in somewhat lower regard. They have impressive resumes or degrees, or they have written books that qualify them as experts. Some have keen insights, while others are witty. But there are those pundits who strike many as little more than overpaid, loud-mouthed know-nothings. Pundits live and thrive in mass media. They are regulars on political talk shows and are often quoted in newspapers and magazines. A pundit is born every minute, it seems. Wikipedia offers a short list of just under 300 names. They express contradictory opinions, and often, big conflicts flare up between pundits, which, let's be honest, their readers and viewers enjoy a lot. With all these pundits and all this arguing, it can be hard to make sense of who the candidates really are and where they differ on critical issues of the campaign. But wait, aren't pundits supposed to make all of that clear? Well, yes, but as TV journalism in the United States comes to embrace entertainment and profit as much as it does news, part of the job of a pundit is to make the boring business of politics a little more fun to watch. Still to come, one man follows his dreams to the American West and finds his calling saddling horses.
My name is Shaka Sali. I have been at the Voice of America for the last 23 years. Perhaps journalism actually chose me when I was still a little kid. I would occasionally go to see the movies. We called it cinema. My mind was able to be carried to distant places. I also developed an interest in the daily newspaper. Not only did I know what was happening in my neighborhood, but even beyond, regionally, and the world. I was an undergraduate student and I started writing. I would never miss an edition of Ted Koppel's Nightline. Now, I don't join the Voice of America, of course, until 1992. It brings about a professional way of covering news. There is that small boy somewhere in me. He's just been lucky in the sense that he has had opportunities to live my dream, as it were.
I'm Jeff Selden, and I work the National Security Beat. National Security Beat is anything that affects the national security of the United States, from counterterrorism to surveillance to even relations with Russia. It's one of the most fascinating beats you can have. It's probably one of the more important beats that you can cover because it touches on so many areas of the world, so many areas of people's day-to-day lives. I'm Jeff Selden, and my beat is national security.
Keith Valley always wanted to be a cowboy, inspired at a young age by Charlie Russell, an artist of the old American West.
And just the Western art kept my interest in the cowboy life. The stories that he wrote about and the adventures that he documented always kept my interest into the Western way of life and the cowboys.
For a long time, Valley worked on a ranch, but after enough cold, hard winters as a ranch hand and a few sore joints, Valley's heart settled on saddle making.
Back in like '94 when I made my first saddle, and I was working horses and had ordered a saddle from a gentleman. It was just, in my mind, it was just taking him too long. So I just made the deal with him that if he gives me the supplies, we'd call it good, and then I would build it myself. So that's how I got started.
Valley made about 12 saddles before he decided to go to Sheridan, Wyoming, an area known for saddle making. He's made more than 60 saddles since then, promoting his work through word of mouth and his website, where he keeps a close eye on his web traffic.
The majority of my business is anywhere from California to Florida. It's amazing to see how some marketing that you think is going to work really well, not worth anything, and then like Facebook comes along and you're like, that can't work, and it's phenomenal.
Saddle making used to be a guarded craft.
Well, some of the saddle makers were so secretive of their trade that when they knew someone was coming into their shop, before anybody could come in, they would throw a cover over their project so nothing could be seen of what they were doing.
But things are different now in the information age, and Valley offers tips on his website, including a video guide on leather tooling. Inside his shop, Valley's pride and love for saddle making is evident in the details.
This particular style, you can see the shape of the seat looks like a shovel. So that's what they call a shovel back, and it's high. This style is a little more traditional. It's quite a bit wider. We'll start with a handmade tree, a wood base, and then rawhide finished.
Hole punches, half punches, stencils, hammers, leather, and rawhide, all tools of the trade.
One of the goals I have in putting a seat in a saddle is to cradle the pin bones and help support the center of the rider.
There's about 84 pieces of leather needed to complete a saddle, and custom-made saddles cost thousands of dollars.
The true horseman wants to feel as much as he can of the horse to where they know where every foot is hitting.
In the old days, people would pay 10 times for a saddle what they paid for a horse. Today, that trend is reversed. So here's what I can tell you about a Keith Valley saddle. You just feel more secure, you don't bounce around as much, and it's got that custom feel. So obviously there's a big difference.
I will have to say, most of the owners of the saddles I have built, they turn into really good friends.
Keith Valley, a true American cowboy, making friends and making saddles one at a time. Philip Alexio, VOA Weekly.
Next time on VOA Weekly, Rohingya refugees resettle in America's heartland and find religious intolerance knows no boundaries. You can follow us on Twitter at VOA News. Like VOA News on Facebook, and for all our videos, subscribe to VOA News on YouTube. Thanks for watching.